Good afternoon from Bradford, everyone. You join me there. Very sunny and warm Peel Park. Today is finally time for the long-awaited sequel to the train versus plane video I did a couple of years ago, and put my lovely wife in for some help for this one. Today we are going to be having a little bit of a race, as you would probably expect if you saw the first video. But it's not train versus plane this time, it's train versus car. I'm going to be driving down from here to Bognor Regis, to the pier in Bognor Regis to be exact, from here in Peel Park, and my wife's going to be doing the same journey, but by public transport, namely the train, and we will see who gets there first. So yeah, who do you think's going to win, basically?
I think on paper you've got me beat because it's less time to drive. However, that doesn't account for service station stops if you need the toilet, and I have the luxury of having the toilet on the train, fingers crossed. You
don't have to stop. I do go to the toilet quite a bit, as I'm sure you can attest. Obviously I've got to stop for that. Personally, I think I've probably got you beat, if I'm being honest.
Well, we'll wait and see.
I don't want to beat you. I want the train to win, but I'm obviously going to get my foot down and get down the road. It's quite a long drive, probably about 5 hours driving time, not including stops. And that's if there's no traffic.
And you've got the M25 to worry about.
Well, might do. If it's that bad, I'll avoid it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got a little bit of time here first, and we're going to set off once it's time for Ellie to go catch her train, and obviously my car's just parked over there. So I'll see you all then. Right, it's time, so I'm going to get my stopwatch going. She's got hers going. 3, 2, 1. Right.
See ya.
See you in Bognor, love. Mwah. Good luck. Safe journey.
You too. Let's go get this bus.
Now I've often had a little jibe and said that the train is faster than the car, so I guess today's the day I really get to put that to test. Right, let's get to my motor. I suppose it would help if I didn't leave my car keys under the tree. Right, panic averted, let's go.
First up is a bus to Bradford Interchange, where I will then be catching the train to London King's Cross via Grand Central. Bus shouldn't take very long. It should leave me about half an hour in case I want to get any tea. With that, let's go to London.
Here she is, flagship of the DTR fleet. Also the only thing in the DTR fleet, my trusty 2003 Nissan Micra.
Construction site in having machinery on board.
Short TikTok. Even been an adder cleaned. Oh, it's absolutely baking in here, man. Right, I'm just going to quickly set everything up how I want it from a drive. It'll take a couple of minutes. In the meantime, here's a look at where we'll be going, or where we could be going today. There's a couple of different routes. I'll talk more about that later, though. We'll leave Bradford and head towards the M62, briefly joining it at Gildersham, before leaving it again to join the M1 at Junction 42. The plan then is to take the M1 all the way to Junction 6A, where it meets the M25. We'll then take the London Orbital Motorway anti-clockwise from Junction 21 to Junction 10. After leaving at Junction 10, we'll then take the A3 south to the outskirts of Portsmouth, before finally cutting across to Bognor on the A27. Our expected journey time, providing that traffic remains fairly light that is in the region of 5 hours, not including stops, and will see us covering a distance of 278 miles, or 447 kilometres. Right, I've put you up on the head. I'm sure you can see my hair's a bit of a mess, you'll have to excuse it, as is the car. I did try and get it to vacuum today, but they were all out of service. Fire up the old machine. I've got my sat nav there, I've got my tunes already going off, obviously. Muted the radio. I'm going to shut the window while I'm talking. It's absolutely baking. I don't know how well you can see all this. I hope this is all alright. I figured this was the easiest way of keeping the camera going. But yeah, without further ado, it's the Rozzers have gone, let's go! Oh, all the other motorists must think I look an absolute idiot with this thing on my head. I'm just going to ignore the sat nav for now. I know where I'm going. Up until basically the Chichester bypass, which is nearly in Bognor, to be honest. Just going to set my mileage as well. I can rough that thing, but yeah, it's 24 degrees. It's a lovely day, but obviously I haven't got my the foresight to have my aircon regassed, so that's not working. Absolutely roasting. Let's go. It's Ellie on the bus.
And I like matching, that's why. So. Oh, sorry about this.
After a short ride courtesy of First West Yorkshire, I arrive into Bradford city centre ahead of my train's 3:30 departure to London. However, as I didn't want to risk missing my train, I now have some time to wait until the Grand Central takes me down to London via the East Coast Main Line.
Meanwhile, I had no such problems with hanging around, and was already making tracks towards Gildersham and the M62. Also, I apologise for the slightly lacklustre views. The whole GoPro on my head thing really didn't work as well as I was hoping it would. However, I did change setup once I'd stopped further down the road, which definitely worked a lot better, as you'll see in a bit. After around a quarter of an hour of driving, I made it to Gildersham Interchange and junction 27 of the M62. We'll only be joining the Transpennine motorway for around 7 miles, to where it meets the M1 at junction 29. Now I get to play a game in a little minute called what's the speed limit on the M62 going to be set to? I'd say about 75% of the time I round this corner, it's got variable speed limit, this bit of the motorway, and yeah, it's rarely on 70, but we shall see. I know there's roadworks on here quite a bit of the minute. What did I say? Rarely on 70, 50. Oh, cracking, it even goes down to 40. Obviously, for those of you who aren't familiar with the UK's network of motorways, first of all, if you're not from the UK, it's sort of our highest grade of road. Well, there's no sort of about it, is our highest grade of road. It's sort of akin to maybe the interstate in America or the Autobahn in Germany, just to give a couple of examples. And for the most part, it's the national speed limit applies to it, which in the UK is 70 miles an hour. But obviously not at the minute. These variable speed limits, the ones that at least have the red circle around the limit, are enforceable by law as well, so you do have to follow them. There's another type of variable speed limit which is advisory, which I'll touch, which we might see later, but which ain't worth the paper it's written on, really. But yeah, I think it's because there's roadworks coming up, to be fair. I think there's roadworks until we get on the M1.
So, I've just made it to Bradford Interchange. I've got just shy of an hour to spare, which seems like a bit of a head start for Dylan. He should be on the M1 by now, given how long it's taken. I have grabbed myself some dinner, since this is scheduled to take until 9:30. My train is just here, waiting to board. I should be able to board in another like 40 minutes. It's a bit early, so I'm just going to sit here and wait to board the train and yeah, try and hide from the sun. I don't do heat.
Already at where the M62 and the M1 meet, and the M621 for that matter. Just got to go up onto this roundabout, then we will be on the M1 and heading south. I'm pretty sure at this roundabout you can use both lanes for the M1, if I'm not mistaken. I hope so. I'm in the wrong lane otherwise. We'll nip that in the bud when we can. I'm 90% certain I could use that left lane for the M1. It's one of them weird roundabouts. I can never remember. Is there another? Yeah, because that just takes you back on the M62, doesn't it? Oh, I don't know. It used to be marked out, I'm pretty sure, on it. I'm fairly certain you could. But anyway, there's no speed limit on this one. Well, there is a speed limit, it's 70, but there's no reduced speed limit, shall we say. I am going to have to leave this window open, I'm afraid, though, because it's baking in here to the point my phone was saying it was overheating, so yeah, I don't really need that to happen. Well, it's one of them ones, is it? Anyway. This is us for about the next 3 hours. It's not the most exciting drive, the M1, but it does its job. It does it pretty well, actually. Yeah. I'll update you if anything interesting happens, I guess. But for now, I'm just gonna... You will have to excuse the fact this car's quite noisy doing 70. So they've got a 5-speed gearbox, and it is a city car at the end of... Wow. Yeah, I'd say it's a city car at the end of the day. It's certainly more aimed at people driving in the city. I will say though, what an absolutely glorious day it is. I seem to remember when I did the train versus plane a couple of years ago. Hard to believe that's over 2 years ago already, but I seem to remember when I did that, it was an absolutely lovely day as well, so maybe I should start doing more of these videos, I don't know. So what can I say about my little Nissan Micra I've got here? Well, she entered service in 2003 and she's called Prudence, if you're wondering. My wife chose that name. Yeah, she's a nice little motor. Big touch wood. Oh, crap. Probably best not whack the indicator. Big touch wood. She ain't let me down yet. I hope today ain't the day she starts, but she ain't let me down yet. But no, she's a good little motor. She's a bit noisy, obviously, on the motorways, like I said. More of a city car. I'm led to believe flat out she could do 103 miles an hour, but I don't really want to light the M1 up like a Christmas tree today, so with speed cameras that is, so I think I'll just stick to 70. It should be more than doable on a day like today. It's not the busiest, or at least it's not here anyway. It's still north of Barnsley and Sheffield, so I don't know entirely. But no, she's really comfy seats. Yeah, it's about all you can ask for when you've only paid about 1,400 quid for your car, but she does the trick. As my father-in-law often says, a second class ride's better than a first class walk, so yeah, she's better than a first class walk, I guess. The downside is I can't just kick back and go to sleep or whatever it is I do on the train. Listen to me. Yeah, I absolutely love this car. Do you know what? Before this, I had a 11 grand Fiat SUV, Fiat 500X SUV. You know, it had all the bells and whistles. It had cruise control, Android Auto, or whatever the Apple version's called as well. But it was just the biggest bad luck charm ever, and when I fell on hard times a bit, I sold that, and within a day I had this, so yeah, I love it. It's served me well, this car. I've only had it since December, I mean, but I will say it is absolutely baking in here. I'm really regretting not getting that aircon regassed, but what can you do? Way better than my £900 Corsa I had before as my first car. My God, did that drive like a £900 car as well. There was nothing worked on it bar the engine, I think. So yeah, but no, I'm just cruising along southbound, 70 mile an hour. Yeah. Oh, just coming up here between junction 32 and 31, between the M18 junction and the Worksop junction. This is the one and only place I've ever had a speeding ticket. This for this speed camera just coming up here. I don't really know what happened. Well, obviously I was speeding, that's what happened. But the top and bottom of it was a 40 temporary limit on this gantry just coming up here, and for whatever reason I didn't see it. I remember braking, if my memory serves me correctly. It just didn't get down in time. 46 and a 40, wham bam, 80 quid and 3 hours on a speed awareness course. But not today. There's no temporary speed limit up, and I am currently cruising at roughly 70. So not today's speed camera, but yeah, I say of motorway awareness. The motorway awareness course, even as it was called, yeah, it was a bit of a waste of time. It was quite interesting, to be fair. It's just 3 hours of my life I'm not ever really going to be able to retrieve, isn't it? But yeah, lesson learned. Watch where you're going, I guess, and don't speed.
Meanwhile, back in Bradford, it was finally time to board the Grand Central Class 180 Adelante that would be taking me down to London. The seats, while nice at first, did start to feel uncomfortable after a while. There are, however, plug sockets, as would be expected. The train was absolutely roasting though. If there was AC, it certainly wasn't effective. Oh, and if you're wondering why I'm sitting in a disabled seat, that's because I do suffer with a hidden disability. I appreciate most people probably weren't aware of this. Not that that seemed to matter, as the guard swiftly told me I had to move and keep it free for wheelchair users, even though none of which were on board, and I would have happily given the seat up should they have been and needed it. I also couldn't be bothered having the fight about hidden disabilities on such a hot day. Moving also meant I had to now put up with this horribly filthy window. And I finally set off from Bradford at just before 3:30. As we've now set off, let's take a look at where I'll be heading today. After doing a tour to West Yorkshire, we'll join the East Coast Main Line just north of Doncaster. After stopping at Doncaster, we'll run non-stop to London, where we'll then have to catch the tube across to Victoria Station. From Victoria Station, it should be a relatively fuss-free hop on a southern service through to Bognor Regis. Total scheduled travel time for me is 5 hours and 52 minutes.
Okie doke, the time is now 3:29 PM, and that's the time Ellie's train's set to depart. So providing it's on time, she's now leaving Bradford. I've already covered 76 miles. I'm really battering it along here. I'm already at Nottingham almost. I'd also just like to point out, I know you can't see, but my in-car thermometer there that does the outside air temperature, 31 degrees at the minute. It's absolutely baking. I'm having that window back open once I've turned this camera off, because it's too warm. I know other countries have probably get on alright with this. Do you know what, ordinarily I would, but I've got a big head of hair at the minute and I've got a camera on my head, so it's causing me to sweat profusely. It's by far the warmest day of the year so far, but it is middle of June after all, so I don't know what we expected.
So at 3:29 PM, this is how it stood. I was already well into the Midlands, all while Ellie had only just started her trip south.
However, I was now ever so aware of the fact that I had an Adelante chasing me down at 125 miles an hour, and that my lead could very soon disappear were my luck with the traffic to suddenly change.
Meanwhile on the train, I was enjoying a very blurry view of Murfield on a very busy service. As you'll have seen in Dylan's video the other week, the first bit of the trip as far as Doncaster is quite slow as we make a number of stops along the way.
Watford Gap services, which is where, if you believe in the north-south divide, this is where the north meets the south. Personally, I also believe in this thing called the Midlands, but also Leicester's not in the south, let's face it. Feel free to argue in the comments about whether north-south divide or north, midland, south, or whatever is. But yeah, that is one of the main points where people say this is the north-south divide, so I just thought I'd point that out.
After continuing down a suspiciously empty M1, I arrive at what would turn out to be my only rest stop en route to Bognor Regis, in the form of Toddington services.
Oh, I made it as far as Toddington already. I've just had a look on Google Maps actually, and it currently says we're going to get to Bognor, the pier in Bognor, just after 7:10. That's, I mean, even accounting for the fact I'm probably going to be stopped here for the next about 20 minutes, half an hour, while I've just acquired some Kernel, drink something that isn't Monster. I've already got through like 2.5 cans of that. But that's like still nearly 2 hours before Ellie's train's due to arrive. I'm just going to give her a call in a second and see whereabouts she is. But yeah, I'm just going to I need to try and fashion something for I've obviously had it on my head, the GoPro, but it's out of charge now, and I'm going to try and fashion something so it can sort of hang from somewhere in the car that isn't in the way, but somewhere I can still quickly get it on and off safely. I'm just charging it now while I was stopped here though. I've got the engine off, but the ignition's on, so it's charging. So yeah, hopefully I'll fashion something, then we'll probably go use the toilet again before we go, and then there's a good chance I won't stop again, but yeah, I'm just going to give Ellie a ring and see where she is. Hello?
Hello?
How you getting on? Whereabouts are you?
Donny?
You're at Donny? You're only at Donny?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to know where I am?
London?
I'm at Toddington.
Wait, really?
Yeah. You know, last services before the M25.
Yeah, I knew it would be.
Damn it, it still says 29 degrees. Right. Lock the doors. Put you round that way. Let's see, how do we... Now that we jump in. Right.
So, as I make my way back onto the M1, here's how things stand. I currently sit around 20 miles north of the M25, while Ellie is in Doncaster, meaning that she's still in Yorkshire. However, Ellie will soon be battering south non-stop at 125 miles an hour, while I, as you'll see in a moment, won't even be travelling at a third of the speed that she is.
He says this is already a temporary speed limit.
The traffic between Toddington and Luton just seemed to go on forever, and we seldom even got up to 40 miles an hour on this stretch of the trip. At long last, around Luton Airport, we got up to something that resembled normal motorway speeds. Finally, I found myself approaching Junction 6A, which, as I touched on earlier, is the M1-M25 junction. It had taken me just shy of half an hour to cover the roughly 18 miles or 29 kilometres to get here from the services. Now, while by no means the worst traffic I've ever experienced, it does mean that Ellie has been able to make up some ground on me. Anyway, we now need to take the M25 anti-clockwise towards Heathrow and the A3.
Meanwhile, I was finally making some good speed south, and more importantly, closing the distance between Dylan and I. His little delay on the M1 had allowed me to make up for lost time, and I was now fast approaching London myself. And I finally pull into King's Cross just a minute late at 12 minutes to 7. Now all I need to do is hop on the Victoria line to head straight to Victoria Station to catch the connecting train to Bognor.
Meanwhile, on the M25, I was making remarkably good progress once more. The variable speed limit never once went below 60 miles an hour for the entirety of my journey between the M1 and the A3. Even the bit around Heathrow, which is notorious for long delays, was surprisingly barren. In seemingly no time at all, I found myself in the short queue for Wisley Interchange and the A3. Around the same time that Ellie pulled into King's Cross, I had already joined the northern end of the A3. Now, while we have left the motorway network, the A3 is still a major trunk road and a high-speed dual carriageway with a 70 mile an hour speed limit for the most part. Functionally, it's very similar to a motorway, bar for say the positioning of junctions, some road features, and who can use it. For example, unlike motorways, cyclists are terrifyingly well within their rights to just head out for a leisurely cycle along a 70 mile an hour stretch of dual carriageway, unless the signage says otherwise. Anyway, I'm not going to go into all of the differences, but if you are interested in more of them, I'm sure they're outlined in the highway code, which is free and readily available online. Well, this is how things stacked up going into the home straight. This was by far the closest Ellie and I had been since leaving Bradford. Little did we know, though, one of us was about to have a far more pleasant last portion of the trip than the other.
Please stand clear of the closing doors.
After an uneventful short trip on the tube, I arrived onto the concourse at London Victoria, where I looked at the departure boards, only to then wish I hadn't. Almost every train south of London was either severely delayed or cancelled as a result of a points failure in the vicinity of Gatwick Airport. As it stood though, my train was only running 5 minutes late, for now at least. And here's what will be taking us on the last portion of the trip to Bognor. No surprises really. Just a run-of-the-mill, Southern Class 377 Electrostar. Also, no surprises given that it was also quite busy.
All front 4 coaches from Horsham will then continue to Barnham, Chichester, Havant, Fratton, Portsmouth and Southsea and...
Despite the initial delay, we make good tracks as far as Gatwick Airport and didn't really incur any further delays up to this point.
Meanwhile, while Ellie was crossing London and waiting for her connecting train to leave, I was battering down the A3 and making some very good progress of my own. Love this bit of the A3 with the tunnels. Not gonna lie, it's part of the reason I took this route. Especially when you can go 70 through the tunnel, it feels proper fast. I feel like I'm driving a TGV. In fact, by the time Ellie's train had left Victoria, I'd already reached the bottom of the A3, crossed from Portsmouth to Bognor on the A27, and had left the dual carriageways behind and was just negotiating the residential streets that Google Maps was taking me down in order to travel the last couple of miles to the pier. But let's just rewind around 15 minutes back to the A27 so that we can summarise what has been a surprisingly and perhaps underwhelmingly clear-cut race. Now, as we approach the end of our journey at least, a bit of an underwhelming conclusion really. I thought it was going to be much closer than this, and to be fair, on another day there's a very good chance it would have been. In terms of traffic, it's about as good as I've ever seen it, bar driving overnight, and even then you have roadworks to contest with as well. This has been about the smoothest journey I've had down here in a long time. Still saying I've got 20 minutes left to the end of the journey in Bognor Pier. But given that Ellie's train, don't even think it's left London yet, it doesn't get until 20 past 9, and then she's got to walk to the pier from there, of course, which is another 10-15 minutes. You know, we're probably going to have beaten her by a good 2 hours. I think I'll pick her up from the station as a consolidation prize, because I think this is I think it's a pretty conclusive contest. No, on another day it could have been quite different, I think. You know, of course I'm going to say I want the train to win. I like the train. I've advocated to take the train. I've always said the train's faster than the car. On this occasion, it hasn't been, and that's certainly not always going to be the case either. But you know. But yeah, unless I'm going to be surprised and she's standing at the end of the pier, doubt it. But regardless, I do hope you've enjoyed this video. It's been a bit of a different to my usual content I put out. I'm just entering West Sussex now, but it's at least in the right county. But yeah. I was hoping it was going to be a mad dash to the finish line, but you know, that's the sort of drama you get in films. Maybe this is real life after all. I've not falsified any of the you know, I've done it. There's an argument to say I should have set off at the same time as a train, but it's not really representative of a true journey, I don't think. You know, you don't just magically appear at a station, and who drives from a station to a station? It's not, you know. I hope it's maybe giving you a bit of an insight. if you do want to see any more trains and cars journeys compared, do let me know. Maybe do something a little bit different somewhere. I am moving down south, as some of you may know, soon, down to Bognor Regis, and that will open up new opportunities, of course, to do different journeys. Maybe do, I don't know, all sorts. Maybe do Bognor Inverness, for goodness sake. It'll be a bit of a throwback to the start of the channel, going all the way up there. But no, I'm just approaching Chichester bypass, or Chorley, as the locals call it for some reason. So yeah, it says a quarter of an hour, just over a quarter of an hour, 12 miles. With that, I'll stop waffling on and let you enjoy the rest of the journey. Except I won't, as it isn't a Dylan's Travel Reports video these days, without a good old table. Now obviously, these statistics should probably be taken with a massive grain of salt, as your own circumstances when it comes to motoring are going to heavily alter your experience. In terms of comfort, for my trip from Bradford to Bognor, I'd give Prudence an 8 out of 10. The seats are very comfy and legroom certainly wasn't an issue for me as the driver. However, I do have to knock 2 points off for the lack of AC on a day like today. Again, it's my fault for not getting it regassed, but that doesn't change the fact that sitting in my car felt like sitting in an oven on the day I travelled, even with the windows down. Meanwhile, Ellie awarded the train an overall score of 6 out of 10, which I'd probably be inclined to agree with based on her experiences on this day. Now, I think that one of the most important points when it comes to comparing private and public transport is to take a look at the emission statistics for the two. After all, public transport is often promoted as the clean way to travel. While exact numbers for the trains that Ellie took were hard to come by, according to the Office of Rail and Road, for the most recent period that statistics are available, on average, a train will emit 47 grams of carbon dioxide per passenger per kilometre travelled. TfL claim on the tube that this number is 44 grams per passenger per kilometre. Using these numbers, we can calculate that Ellie is responsible for 21 kilograms of carbon dioxide being emitted into the atmosphere, not including her short bus journey in Bradford. Meanwhile, for the car, it's much easier to calculate a more accurate figure, as all cars in the UK have their emissions data advertised, and are regularly tested for compliance for this as part of their annual MOTs. My Nissan Micra is advertised as emitting 143 grams of CO2 per kilometre. Times this by the 447 kilometres we travelled, and that gives us a total of roughly 64 kilograms of carbon dioxide emitted. Looks like a clear win for the train, right? Well, that figure is for the entire car, regardless of how many people are travelling in it. In reality, occupancy is probably going to alter this statistic a little bit, due to increased weight and whatnot. But say for a moment I filled all 5 seats in my car. Other than being very cramped and uncomfortable, that would mean that each passenger was now responsible for 28.6 grams of CO2 emissions per kilometre, which is a drastic decrease on the train and tube's 47 grams per person per kilometre and 44 grams per person per kilometre respectively. In fact, in order to roughly equal the train's carbon footprint, I would only have to fill 3 seats, which is just incredible really. In terms of travel time, the car did the journey in a brisk 5 hours and 42 minutes. Now, I've driven from Bradford to Bognor more times than I can care to think, and this is probably the fastest I've ever experienced it driving between the two, less for when I've done the journey overnight. Meanwhile, the train, well, I'll save that until Ellie actually gets here. As for the cost, Ellie's train ticket set us back £25.40, including railcard discount of around a third, which is a pretty good price for Bradford to Bognor. As for the cost of driving, well, I filled my car up with petrol from pretty much empty in Bradford, costing me £46.30. When I arrived into Bognor Regis, I had roughly a quarter of a tank remaining, giving me a rough cost of £34.73. Unlike in a lot of other countries, there aren't really many toll roads here in the UK, so I didn't incur any additional costs as a result of this. Now obviously this figure doesn't include other costs associated with motoring, such as the cost of taxing and insuring the car, as well as the cost incurred for ongoing maintenance, but it does give us a good idea at least. And again, were the car to be full, that would give us a per passenger cost of roughly £6.95, and I mean, you're not even going to get that sort of value on Megabus, let alone the train. Personally, the outcome of this surprised me, particularly when it came to the emissions. I thought that the train would have wiped the floor with the car when it came to this. That said though, on another day you could quite easily swap the travel times around. As I'm sure anyone who has ever used the M25 will tell you, it is a massive lottery regarding traffic. Well, it only took me around half an hour on the section I needed today. The same bit of M25 has taken me in excess of 3 hours to negotiate in the past. Anyway, regardless, do let me know your thoughts and perhaps your own experiences of deciding whether to take public transport or to just drive in the comments below.
Exit the roundabout onto Bognor Road. Continue on Bognor Road for 1 mile.
There we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Bognor Regis Pier, or Leisure Pier, or whatever it's. Bognor Regis Leisure Pier. Is it? I don't know, I'm trying to read off the maps. It just says Bognor Regis Pier Leisure. I assume the leisure bit's referring to the arcade, which I'm probably going to spend about 2 hours in now that I have to wait for Ellie. I just need to find somewhere to park, see if I need to pay for said parking, and then I can walk to the end of the pier and call this done, I think. Okay, I don't need to pay for parking, it's past 6 o'clock. That'll do me. Lovely stuff. That's a lovely clip in the curb. Oh, okie dokie, windows up. Turn the lights off. Grab me some keys and my phone. Just before 6:45, so probably about 2 hour win, but we'll see. There's a gap in the traffic. Dutifully get out of the car. Tell you what, I'm going to miss Bradford when I go, but my God, you can't beat the coast on a day like today.
Back on the train, things had gone from bad to worse, as we were held up at Three Bridges and Crawley. And if that wasn't bad enough, it was also announced that we now have to wait for some time at Horsham for a relief driver to be sourced, and that the train would now be terminating one stop short of Bognor Regis at Barnham, meaning that I'd now have even more time added to my trip whilst I waited for a connecting train. So, it is nearly 10 to 10. We are nearly 8 hours in, and we are still not at Bognor Regis. There has been a fair few delays. They said it's due to a signalling fault near Gatwick Airport, and it's caused congestion on the southern network throughout the day. But it's proved to be pretty crap for a race, as you can imagine. So I'm waiting at Barnham now for 8 minutes or so until the next train to Bognor, where I think if Dylan is there he will pick me up from the station because it's getting dark and, you know, girls on the road in the dark, not something I particularly want. So just waiting for the next train to Bognor and I will be on board.
And with her train now pulling into the station, that gives her a total travel time of 8 hours and 18 minutes. Over 2.5 hours longer than the car, which I honestly did not expect. Right, apologies for the lack of intro. It's actually like a few days later now. I'm sat back at home in the car. My dear wife over here did actually survive the trip, which is good.
Just about.
I don't know about you, but some of the, I think some of the results surprised me.
Yeah, definitely.
Not even just the travel time, the emissions definitely surprised me a lot, but, I don't know. Anyway, do let me know what you thought of the video. If you did enjoy the video, why not hit that like button down below and even comment your thoughts, as all of them help us out immensely. If you're new to the channel, then I upload new videos every Friday, so you're going to want to subscribe and hit that notification bell. A special thanks, as always, goes to my fantastic patrons and channel members for their ongoing and generous support. If you want to join them in supporting the channel from just £1, dollar or euro per month, all while getting ad-free access to my videos, then you'll find the relevant links in the description below. However, with that, all that's left for me to say is thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you all next Friday.